Yeah. So we're going to start with an overview of Domino Data Lab, what it is, and it's a little bit about its capabilities and why it's important. And then we're going to get into finding the right LLM for the job. And what we're going to focus on today are a couple of different new features that you can take advantage of in Domino. First one is AI Gateway, and we'll see how um, we can leverage access to LLMs and be able to track them and be able to kind of monitor what's going on with them. Well, that's AI Gateway, and then we'll also jump into Jupyter AI after that and talk a little bit about the coding assist integration within Domino. And then, as always, we'll have a rousing session of Q&A. And so I'm excited. Let's jump in. So first off, Domino Data Lab. The Domino Enterprise platform allows you to take your data, your software, your languages, your preferred IDEs as a team of data scientists, whatever packages you want, and your compute choices. And what can you do with those? You can explore and transform those. You can train and tune models, whether they be traditional AI models or things like LLMs, or fine tune those. You can evaluate and optimize those inside of AI Lab. You can review and approve those through AI Factory. And that's one of the things that Domino really gives you, is this aspect of collaboration and reproducibility that's from its very inception was designed for. And so what I mean by that is that, a lot of systems have collaboration, but they're not, they kind of start to break down when you need them in an enterprise setting to handle, security models and things like that. Well, Domino has permissions around everything, has RBAC to everything, all the assets straight out of the box, so that you can control those, you can reproduce those, you can audit those, and you can bring those back around. And so it's really, really powerful by design to be able to do that, to also have governance and cost management around that, around all these things, the flexibility that you can bring in whatever you need to. And then on the other side, as we can see there, you can leverage these as model APIs. You can push out applications through the app publishing framework, things like Shiny or Streamlit or Flask, something like that. You can create dashboards. You can push things out to the edge for IoT. And then you can also do things in database. And so brings you back around, whether you're a data scientist, whether you're on the business side, a stakeholder needing to approve things and keep track of what's going on there. It's great when you're in ML engineering and on the IT side, to be able to control costs and make sure that you understand where things are. And also for compliance, they're very important. That collaboration, reproducibility, and governance pieces allows you to get a full picture and to have explainability and transparency in what you do. So that's a little bit about what Domino brings to the table. All right. So now let's jump in a little further and find the right LLM and find the right LLM application for the job. So to start with, like I said, let's talk a little bit about Domino AI Gateway. Domino AI Gateway allows you to prevent things like accidental leaks, okay? And to be able to securely manage API keys. It allows you, excuse me, just one moment, technical difficulty there. It allows you really to be able to integrate within ML. It's built on top of ML Flow Deployment Server, and it wraps things around so that you can use your existing ML Flow projects, but it has that enterprise security like I talked about, so that you have traceability, you have explainability, things like that. But it also ensures that only approved personnel are allowed to see and use model endpoints. And that's really important, especially in today's wild and woolly world of generative AI, because it's so easy to bounce up against quotas and rate limits and things like that. And you need to be able to kind of start to pull those things in through that controlled user access. Now, we also have detailed activity logs so that you can see who's accessing what how many tokens they're spending, and things like that. And it gives you a consistent interface for data scientists. You can pull in LLMs now and be able to interact with them seamlessly, very, very easily. And so really, I'm going to we'll kind of think about this a little bit through the eyes of the admin on the one side and the data analyst on the other. And so I can use, as an admin, I'm using this Domino AI gateway. And notice here that you have endpoints that you're accessing right here around request and response. So you can go out and grab your assets like Domino workspaces, Domino runs, whatever you need to there through the Domino gateway. And the nice thing is when you create an endpoint that allows you to leverage one of the LLMs from the providers, it stores your secrets, your API keys in a vault behind the scenes. So there's no sharing API keys with everybody. It's a centralized controlled access there so that you can have a great way to access those models from different LLM providers like OpenAI, Anthropic, Hugging Face, AWS Bedrock, things like that, and to be able to use that within the traditional Domino deployment boundary there. And you can see that we have an audit trail for those logs. So how, as an admin, do I do this? Well, let's dive down to the weeds a little bit. Right now, we're creating this as an API first feature, and so we're using curl commands to be able to push in endpoints. And so you see here we have an endpoint called completion, and we have 3 different endpoint types. We have embeddings, we have chat, and we have completions there. And so you can see there we're having that endpoint type. The next thing is that you have endpoint permissions that you can set up. You can either say, is everybody allowed true, and let everybody that has access within Domino to use those. You can also limit that as well by user ID and set that up that way. Then you have the model provider. In this case, OpenAI, but it could be Anthropic, could be Hugging Face, could be anything. And then each provider has some different parameters that you can use within that as well. And then finally, you have your model configuration, which is usually your API key. And if you're doing this from within Domino, within a terminal, you can simply use an environment variable there for the open API key to even start that up. And then you can also just use the Domino user API key and pull that in directly for your server as well. And then that will post up there, and you'll have those endpoints available to you. You can modify those endpoints at any time. So say, for example, a common scenario right now, especially when working with LLMs, is bumping up against quotas or rate limits or something like that. And so what you might do as an admin, if you see, you have a lot of people accessing the latest and greatest, like GPT-4 1106 preview or something like that, you might want to pull that back and scale that and give them only access to maybe like GB3.5 Turbo or something to be able to kind of take off some pressure from those rate limits, things like that. Okay. And so really, to circle back around, it allows users to enjoy the benefits of provider-hosted models while ensuring that they're following security best practices. So now I'm actually looking at one screen and sharing another, so I apologize for that. So before we jump into the gate, let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and jump in to AI, into Domino. I'm in my workspace already. And over here, I can see a new section called LLM endpoints. And I have 4 different endpoints right now, 2 of which are embeddings. And embeddings are important when you're needing to access things like, if you've watched the retrieval augmented generation a previous session, you'll know that you need to embed information into your vector database in order to use that. Or when you're communicating with the LLM, you're using embeddings to be able to do that. And then it's pulling those things back, translating that, and so on and so forth. So embedding models are important. And so you can expose those models into a given user, into a project, and then they can be used within a workspace. So we've got ChatGPT-4, we've got ChatGPT, I can't talk today, 3.5 Turbo, and then another embedding. So I can simply use that within a project. So I'll just create a new notebook here and then go ahead and copy the code. And paste that in. And then just have something in here to be able to see the response. And there we go. Okay, let's go ahead and run this, but let's take a look at this code right now. So now we're using, since I said we're using MLflow's deployment server, we've set up an endpoint beforehand called ChatGPT-3 or ChatGPT-4-JA, that's me. And I'm using the get deploy client to be able to grab that information. And so in my client predict here, I'm simply setting my endpoint and then my input for my messages. And in this case, I'm sending over, since it's a chat, tell me a joke about rabbits. Okay, well, let's see if that will. And now let's print the response. We can see that here, that here's the content. Why don't rabbits get in trouble? Because they always hop to it before anyone notices. Ha, 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 ha. Very funny, very funny. But that's great. We got that information back. But notice what else we got back as part of this. And this is an exciting piece. And I know it's just, the return of JSON here, but it's kind of exciting. So you take what you get. So here, notice that it has a usage section as well that gives me the prompt tokens that were used, the completion tokens that were used, and the total tokens that were used. So I can actually extrapolate that out if I want to and pull that back in. Okay? So that's the first piece of using AI Gateway as a user. All right? As an admin, as I'm working on these, I can go out and look at, through MongoDB, I can use a query to see, and I'll just run that again. There we go. So I can see who is accessing this, what time they accessed it, what the endpoint name was. And so this is the initial part. We're going to be adding much more metadata as we go along. But you can see down here, if I scroll all the way to the bottom, that this was accessed AI Gateway endpoint. Then I accessed, actually it'd be at the top. Let's see here. Yeah, there we go. I accessed this. It's GPT-4, how many input tokens there were. And so I can use that then and extract and leverage that data and expose that data. Now, as you go through and you set up endpoints, another thing that you can do, unfortunately, I don't have it working right now, but just to give you an art of the possible, is that you can set up endpoints with your organizational IDs and be able to then track that for billing and things like that, or usage like that. So that's a little bit about AI Gateway to start with. Let's take a look also at, where did it go? My computer is delaying right now for some reason. I apologize. So I'm going to take a look really quickly. Let's grab this, drop that in here real quick. A couple other things I want to point out. You've got your audit trail. You're creating that. And then if we go over to actually to the user side, actually, before I wanted to do that, this is what I wanted to show was, since it's built on top of MLflow deployment server, here are the supported provider models that we have access to right now that you can create endpoints for. OpenAI, Mosaic, Anthropic, Cohere, Azure OpenAI, Palm, MLflow, Hugging Face, A21, and Bedrock. And they're expanding that list pretty quickly on supported models that you can use through the deployment server itself. That's a little bit more about what's provided for in AI Gateway as far as models are concerned. Let's take a look at a different example real quick. And in this case, if you remember last time, we talked in Intro to RAG about surfacing our medical data and using that. And now I have an example of this, though, that goes through and it uses the AI Gateway, and it's also using the AI Gateway support that you get through using the MLflow embeddings embeddings function, or the embeddings call, I should say, and the chat call through MLflow embeddings and MLflow chat within LangChain. So you can now incorporate that now into, say, for example, like a RAG application. So here, let's go ahead and run this. Grab our keys. And then you can see that we're using our endpoint here. And once again, using the Domino MLflow deployments that allows us to push that through the gateway so that the audit trail happens and all the Domino goodness happens at the same time. So I'll go ahead and set up in this case, we're using Pinecone. And here's our prompt template, like before. And I'll grab this again. Nope, I don't want to restart. Instead of typing that, I'll just copy that. And now we'll put our query in here. Run that. Take a brief moment to run that. Let's see the results. And we got the result. And instead of using the regular way we would have done it with LangChain with either Chat Open API or Hugging Face embeddings or whatever, we're using it through AI Gateway. I didn't need to worry about the API keys for that or anything like that. So that's a practical application of using AI Gateway. Okay, so now let's talk about coding assistants. Coding assistants are really, really, really powerful, but they won't replace you because, as we all know, with LLMs, you have to verify the output there because of the way they work. And let's just take a step back really quickly and talk a little bit about that. Remember, if you will, from prompt engineering, that session that we did, we talked about how these things work. And we talked about it last time too, and the way the transformer works and the way that it uses attention to build percentage curves for how it interacts with different words, different sentences, things like that. And so when it brings back that information, if it doesn't have really good percentages for what you've asked it, it's going to confidently return incorrect information, sometimes just making up things out of whole cloth. And so we want to, and I say that because we want to verify and look and make sure, run the code, make sure it works. But it can give us a powerful asset right inside of Domino. And with Jupyter AI, it allows you to run a couple of different AI specific AI specific powers, if you will, right from within inside your notebook. Now, if you're using Jupyter Lab, you have access to the Jupyter Not chatbot. And within that, you can you can have it do some limited retrieval augmented generation. You can ask it to learn about, and it's kind of limited, but like text files and R files, Python files, and like TypeScript files, things like that. But there's not and text files, but there's not really any PDF or things that we might use RAG for traditionally. So it's a starting point. And you can also, inside of your Jupyter notebook, you can use the Jupyter Not to generate Jupyter notebooks for you. And we'll see that in just a moment with a prompt. And so you have all this within the native chat UI. Now, you also have in Jupyter Lab, and then in just if you're running Jupyter notebooks, you can use what are called Jupyter magics. And those are the %magic commands that you can use to leverage commands to talk with your different model providers, just like kind of like we did with AI Gateway, and to be able to utilize those in different ways. And it allows you to have things that are, fully reproducible because it's within Domino. So your workspace is constantly catching all the things that you do, and then you can sync that up and take care of that. And it gives you a lot of different choice and control over different foundation models that you can use. So what can it do? Like I said, it can generate text and code. It can explain, it can debug and rewrite code. And with the Jupyter Not chat interface, you can use that within Jupyter Lab as part of the interface. And you can also use the magics directly in notebooks. And you can build a notebook from a single prompt and answer questions with your data, like I said, in a limited way. But let's take a look at that. Okay. Just one second. There we go. It's we make it as real world as it can get when we're doing these. So let's take a look at this. So this, to start with, this is Jupyter Not. And if you're running 5.9 and above, you get Jupyter AI support within your notebook. Now it has to be configured, and so the way to configure that is that you have a language model to start with. That's how we interact with that, and you have a lot of different providers that you can utilize, including the very popular None. So, which is what you start with. But you have AI 21, Amazon Bedrock, Anthropic Claude, Chat Anthropic now, Cohere, GPT for all, OpenAI, and right now you have up to you've got access to both the 32K version and the regular version, and you also have in GPT 3.5 Turbo, you have the 16K version as well, expanded. So, and then also a SageMaker endpoint. So then you can also put in API URLs and things like that if you need to, or proxy. But the real important one is the embedding model then. And there are several different embedding models that you can choose from. Bedrock, Cohere, GPT for all, and OpenAI. And I typically, if I'm using an OpenAI language model, I like to use Ada 2 because it's really good and it works. You put your API key in here. If I was using Anthropic, it would ask me for my API key here. And then you can also ask it if when you're when you're writing a message, if you want to hit enter and immediately send the message, or if you want to be able to type and then specifically hit the start button to make that work. So that's a little bit about the start here. And so some different commands you can use from within Jupyter. Learn. So since it's a text file, I went into here in my data directory that I set up, and this little text file called SW text. And what it is all the crawls from all the Star Wars movies. And so you can actually have it learn the text files, and then you can start asking questions about it. So I thought that was a little bit of fun. And we'll take a look at that in just a moment. So let's go back over to Jupyter. And now let's go in and one of the important things about the chatbot is that it has no access to your files unless you give it access. And let's take a look at that right now. I'm going to go in and take a look at this generated notebook that I did. We'll start there. And notice here, it's important to understand, it created everything that in this notebook from this prompt here. That's all that was provided, and everything else that you see was created by the notebook itself. And so what it actually does, I kind of went out and looked at this because I'm curious, is it's creating several LangChain custom chains for the overview. And then for each section that you need, it's creating those parts itself and then putting them back and then assembling them back together and saving those in. Okay. So let's go down here. You can see it has not only loading and preprocessing the data set, defining the neural network architecture, initializing the model parameters, defining these things. But I'm not really familiar with PyTorch and how it trains things. And there's no documentation in this particular block here. That's weird, isn't it? So let's ask Jupyter a little bit about this code. Notice here, when I added the selection, it put an include selection here button or a checkbox, and it checked it for me. That means that Jupyter going to have access to this and going to be able to do something with that. I could also have it either put its output inside of the Jupyter UI here, or I can have it replace the code if I want to. And so let's go ahead and replace this section. I'm feeling brave today. Let's try that. And so what I'm going to tell it is document this code. And so notice it shows you what the code looks like. It pulls in the code for basically for documentation purposes, and it'll take a moment to do that. And then all of a sudden it will come back. But while it's coming back, so you can see here that it kind of worked, but not really. It basically put in a code block. So we can kind of make that work a little bit better, getting rid of the markdown. That was very helpful. So that's why you need to you validate and verify. So it went through and documented the code itself, putting a line on each thing. And then it kind of also gave a summary of what the function does itself. So that's pretty interesting. So before, I asked it to learn in that directory that Star Wars text file. And so I asked it, what is episode 1? It said episode 1, The Phantom Menace, is about turmoil that has engulfed the Galactic Republic due to, the taxation of trade routes, which is always an exciting thing to build a movie about, so on and so forth. So it was able to do a primitive retrieval augmented generation. Okay, so now I'm going to take a look at some of the on the magic side, and let's go in and let's see it. Let's ask it. I'm going to ask it to create a pandas data frame to show the 10 busiest U.S. airport average delay times. And notice here, I'm loading the AI magics, and then the way I use that, if it's a double percent sign magic, that means it applies to the entire cell. And then I'm giving it the model that I want to use, and for the format that I want is code, but I can make the format there are several different formats that you can use with this. You can format as markdown, all sorts of different things. So let's go ahead and load up our Jupyter AI. And now let's go ahead and run. And since this is live, it's taking a moment to do that. And so here, it's generated the code below and created. And so notice that it's it didn't give it many data, but it did give me the totals for the delays, things like that. I think I'll go ahead and run that again. Let's see what else we get here. So this is why it's a start. It's an assistant. It gives you a starting point. And so we have some different ways that we can do that, but it gives us the code that we can start playing with and running with. So here's some different commands that we can run from within the magics themselves. First one is help, and that just gives you back the help and the options just like you'd have with any other function there. And then you can also go through and you can register a name. If you have a command that you're using a lot, you can register an alias for that. And you can see here also, here's the current list of providers that it's working with: Anthropic, Chat, OpenAI Chat New. So all sorts of different things. And then there's some aliases. Like I said before, we have some aliases there, like for GPT-2, GPT-3, ChatGPT, GPT-4. So you can use that as shorthand and not have to type out the entire model name. And then you can do things like custom change with AI register, things like that, and then register that, and then be able to use that to be able to pull those things out. So that's a little bit about the commands themselves. And so it gives you a pretty powerful assistant to be able to do some things to give you a starting point to augment you as a stronger data analyst. So let's see a couple of other things here. We saw the code. A little bit more about format here. You can format things as markdown, as code, as math, HTML. You can even go through and, like, for example, oh, I forgot to reload it. Got to load that again. There we go. Okay. And so it created a square using SVG with a black border and white fill. Now I can also interpolate Python scope using AI magics. And so basically what that means is that you can use interpolation as kind of a shortcut to be able to pull things in this case, from one cell into another. So let's see how it can explain, debug, and rewrite code. So in this case, we've got just a little code here. It's just going to print the range from 0 to 5. And now notice that we have in2. Well, this is 4. And so every time you run it, you kind of have to change it a little bit, but still kind of fun. And I'm going to run that, and it will explain the code to me. This loop will iterate over the numbers 0 through 4, and there we go. Now, we can also use it to debug code. So, for example, if I type something inaccurate, I can go in and then I can print the error with that. Did you mean print food? Now let's explain that error using GPT-4. And so it tells you that it's an error indicating a syntax error, and this is how you use the print. And so we could go ahead and change that out with, instead of 2, we'll use 6 because that's what it is. And again, notice that what I'm doing is I'm using the cell number on the side here as the interpolation. So it's able to pull that in. And notice if, I don't know if you noticed this before, but it also is really good about saying, hey, this is AI generated code. So you know that who wrote that. So that's nice. And so basically it gives us the correct code there. Yay. So what we've seen here is the ability for the coding assistant to quickly make us more productive in a lot of our tasks. We've seen that it can learn and ask questions. It can generate notebooks and do a lot of different things as well to make us much more productive. And it's totally integrated within the Jupyter Lab workspace that you have within Domino. You can also use, if you're using VS Code, you can use GitHub Copilot over there. So once again, flexibility of choice within Domino, and it helps you choose the right LLM for the job. So we saw our demo. And so as we wrap it up, Domino allows us to accelerate GenAI in the enterprise by being a unified platform for not only GenAI, but also machine learning, data science, and advanced analytics. And as we've talked about and we've seen, it's really open and extensible because it allows you to leverage the best of what you're dealing with in the tools that you're comfortable with to be able to use that. But in the same way, but in addition to that, it's secured and governed like we talked about, and by design pulls in governance and auditability and all those good things that the enterprise really needs to give you the full spectrum of GenAI. Everyone, thank you for watching. We're ready to take some questions. So we had a question come in. What do you need to get started with Jupiter AI? Um, well, right now, Jupiter AI is available in your Domino Lab workspace with the advent of 510. You can go in and set that up, put in your language model, put in your embedding model, and then just go to town. And can Jupiter AI be installed without Domino support? It is integrated and ready to go if you choose to use it. Great questions. And remember, Jupiter AI is an assistant. It's just going to help you get get answers to tasks and different items that you need, including generating those whole notebooks. Another question came in. Do I still need to use OpenAI's APIs if I build using AI Gateway? No. Um, it's one of the nice things about AI Gateway in the fact that once the admin sets up that model from that provider inside your endpoint, then the API key is secured. But if you want to switch, say for example, you want to switch providers or even LLMs, a common scenario is running up against rate limits. Say for example, you have like a newer model like a GPT-4 and you're running up against rate limits, you can easily change that out and use like a GP35 Turbo. You can also, as an admin, limit who can use those different models. You can set permissions very, very easily on that. You can also switch models, switch providers really, really easy by basically just changing the endpoint in your code once you have access to it. So you can also, with AI Gateway, um, start being even more flexible with you can use it inside of your apps, inside your chat uh, bot. You can, like for Streamlit, things like that. Um, just to confirm, my Jupiter AI violate data privacy? No. In terms of it only looks at the information that you allow it to. So if you remember when I was in my notebook, I highlighted the section I wanted, and then I had to click a checkbox to use that code within Jupiter AI. So it's secure in the fact that you choose what you're going to use what the code assistant is going to be able to see. Really good questions. And you can also use Copilot then inside of a VS Code environment as well. And that's the power of Domino in the fact that you can not only bring your data and your models and your favorite IDE, but you can use things just like Jupyter AI or VS Code right from within your environment. It gives you the ultimate flexibility all the way through that data science lifecycle. Can I mix LLMs in the same script with AI Gateway? Absolutely. If you saw in the presentation, I was using an embedding model from OpenAI, and then I was using a GPT-4 with for my retrieval augmented generation. And you could even use a Hugging Face embedding model, and then maybe an Anthropic model as well. Different endpoints, different providers, totally secure, access the same way. Any other questions? You know, it's been a great audience today. And thank you for sharing this time with us. And we hope to see you again soon. Thanks.